Speaking of chanting, let's begin with one. Yananai, 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 one more time. Hananai, yananai, hababai, yananai. Harai, babai, nananai, yananai, 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 harai, babai, nananai, hananai, yananai, yadadai, nai, yababai, Hi, nai, 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 yeah. Morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. It's an honor to spend this time with you, and I use the with intentionally. I know some of you from previous sits like this and other ways in which we know each other, but already we've created a community by saying that we are dedicating this time to the mutually beloved practice of giving to self in a way that also ends up being giving to humanity. And I know that sounds lofty, but I mean it, because the more we're able to emerge from experiences like this in our life, a little more whole, a little more well, a little more grounded, a little more human, the better we are able to do whatever it is we do in our work, in our lives, professionally and personally, that make the world a little more well, a little more grounded, a little more connected, a little more humane. And so we've become a community just by representing our intention to do this by being here. As Rabbi Mark said, I live in California, but I'm currently in Connecticut. The only reason I want to share that with you is because I'm here visiting my father who is ill. And the only reason I'm sharing that with you is because I do not expect to be interrupted during the next half an hour by something in the house. But if I do, just know it will have been an emergency, and that's why. But it's my honor to spend this time with you. And I'm not expecting for that to happen, but I wanted you to know the context if it did. I live within the Parsha. Whatever we're reading a particular week informs my thinking, my sermonizing, my pastoral care, and my meditation. It's not the only way in which I meditate, but it gives some interesting contours to a meditation. And we're in Parshat Yitro. And what most people remember about Yitro is the Ten Commandments in Revelation. But on some level, I think the most important wisdom that is revealed in Parshat Yitro, pun intended, comes in a quieter moment when Yitro, Moshe's father-in-law, realizes that Moshe is trying to do the hardest human endeavor possible, which is leading Jews and taking care of their complaints, will overwhelm him if he does not delegate. In fact, Yitro says, Navol tibol. Moshe, you keep going like this, you're going to wither. You're going to go from being verdant to being desiccated and dried out. It's not going to be good for you, not going to be good for them. And the wonderful Spanish commentator Ibn Ezra connects that phrase, Navol tibol, you will certainly wither, to use of the same root in the first Psalm of the 150. The first Psalm says about a certain kind of person, Va'alehu lo yibol. He will be like a tree whose leaves never wither, remain strong and vibrant. What kind of person? Amongst other things, b'moshav leitzim lo yashav. The kind of person who doesn't sit with those who are leitzim, and who are leitzim? Scorners. People who chafe at humanity, people who go from sarcasm to cynicism, people who don't take care of others' well-being, and in some ways their own individual personal well-being, because too much bitterness has taken over their lives. I want to use that as the impetus for our meditation as we explore in the contours of our own mind where bitterness bubbles up and percolates, and what strength we have to keep it at bay, to not sit amongst the late seam, amongst the scoffers, and therefore not subject ourselves to premature withering of our character and our spirit. With that in mind, if you haven't already, I invite you to close your eyes and to begin to luxuriate. This is a spa treatment that is free and available to us at any time. We don't need a steam room or the hands of a masseur and a masseuse. We don't need a resort. We need our thin eyelids and proper posture and a mostly quiet space around us to be transported into a different psychic and emotional and spiritual realm. There's the great David Harris, who is not a God person, is rather an atheist, but a beautiful writer about mindfulness and meditation as he wrote it. Spirituality is the intentional curating of an enhanced and elevated human condition. Feel yourself elevate as you curate this moment, a treasure for you, a womb protected just for these moments from every extrinsic stimulus, every headline that will still be waiting for you when you're done, every email and to-do list, even the ambient noises on the periphery of your consciousness, because we never live in complete quiet. They are thrust to the edges, and within which you have you, and a serenity you have beckoned, and that you are holding on to. Ve'alehu lo yibol. How to be a person who's like a tree, whose leaves never wither. Navol tibol. How do we hold ourselves so that we do not crumble, dry up, lose our life force? Stay away from the late seam. Do not be one of the late seam. When we feel bubbling up the urge to be scornful, to be overly cynical, to roll our eyes, to let sarcasm go past its healthy boundaries. The release may feel good, like a dopamine hit, but we injure others and ourselves. We actually begin to wither every time we allow ourselves to scoff, to be flippant, to be too glib for the moment. And we want to remain, our bodies and our spirits, as alive and as full as possible. See if you can create an image in your mind's eye, because our minds are so powerful, at bitterness itself bubbling up inside of you. Could be like magma coming up from a hole in the earth's skin or some other smokiness that is billowing. Watch it. Watch your own instinct for scorn coming up to the surface. And watch yourself using breathing and patience and calmness to put it back in its place so that what is exhibited is cleaner, healthier, better for others and for you. And as you watch yourself in that image, hold your position and breathe and be well. And if you haven't already, you can open your eyes, sharing the screen of a blessing that emerges from the Buddhist tradition that I normally use for my own personal and for the meditations that I lead in our community. And we generally say this 3 times out loud. You can stay on mute, so we're only hearing one voice, but I invite you to say it with me. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. And may we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. And I say to you all, shalom and namaste.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Adam Kligfeld. Beautiful teaching, beautiful Torah and practice today for us. I want to wish, certainly want to wish your dad refuah shlema, and so glad that he and your family have you nearby right now to be with them. Friends, we seal the practice as we do every day by offering those of you who are mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in Kaddish, to do so, and you can put the name or names of anyone you're honoring today in the chat box now or later after we recite Kaddish, if you prefer. If you're not reciting Kaddish, an opportunity to stay present and offer your compassion and support for those who are by creating a minyan of comfort virtually, of course. Thanks to Kat Esposito, who's holding our space, tech space here, as always, beautifully, for sharing the words on the screen. And if you are reciting Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body, or if need be in spirit, and reciting the words together. And you can unmute at this time. Gadal Yitadash Shemei Rabbah Yama Dibra Hirute V'Yamid V'Mokute Shayechon V'Yamechon Uchaye Devon Beit Yisrael Ha'agala Zman Kariv Ru Amen Shmei Rabba Mevarach Olam Amen Barach Yishtabach Ha'ar V'Yamam V'Yitnaseh Hadar V'Yitale Shalal Shemei Kudashah Elan Yirchat B'Shirata Tishbachata V'Nechamata Miran Ba'olam Miru Amen Yehesh Lama Rabba Mishamaya Tachnu Malenu Shalom
Shalom, yes, Shalom, Aleinu al Kol Yisrael, V'Kol Yisrael, Amen.
Amen.
And friends, of course, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're leaving us now, I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Reminder that tomorrow will be led in practice by our own IJS faculty member, Rebecca Schisler, who leads us, as always, to sit into Shabbat together every Friday. And want to thank Patricia Kirkush, of course, for sponsoring our practice today to honor her chavruta, Ruth, her study partner, practice partner, Ruth Several. Thank you so much, Patricia, for your support, for your love for and honoring Ruth, and also for your support for all of us in helping to make this practice in this community possible. We're really appreciative of that. I want to thank our teacher for today, Rabbi Adam Kligfeld of Temple Beth Am in Los Angeles. And I'm going to put in the chat, for those who are interested, a link to the webpage at Beth Am in LA, where Rabbi Adam leads a meditation every Friday morning. And Adam, so bring you in here. Maybe you can just mention the timing on that, how that works. Oops.
Yep, sorry about that. It's 8:15 Pacific time on Friday mornings, but not tomorrow because I'm going to be on a plane coming back from the East Coast. Pretty much every Friday morning at 8:15 Pacific. You can join the Zoom, which Mark is sending out. I also do it live on my Facebook page if you want to do it that way.
Okay, great. Okay,
I'm putting a link to the Nigun into the chat.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful Nigun. There's the Zoom link and the password for the Zoom for people who are interested. So that's 8:15 Pacific time and I guess 11:15 Eastern time. So you can do a double header on Fridays, with Rabbi Adam at 11:15, and then join us at 12:15 again, 12:30 as usual. Oh yes, Lori, thank you for that. So we are open for questions, and want to thank you, Adam. If folks have a question you'd like to put, please put it in the chat box, and if you can, preface it by writing question, or just feel free, of course, to share your experience with the practice today, if you'd like, if you're so moved, or to use this time and space to continue with your own practice until we conclude in about 10-15 minutes. All right, lots of requests for little practical requests, and then we'll get into the teaching itself, Adam. What was that quote? Beautiful quote about the curating of spirituality. I think it was it Daniel Siegel?
Sam Harris.
Oh, Sam Harris. Okay.
I was paraphrasing it.
Okay.
It comes in his book, I think, The End of Faith, which is a challenging book for people of faith to read, but an important one. Mm-hmm. It's something like spirituality is the intentional curation of a heightened human realm experience. He's basically saying that what prayer and ritual practice tries to do in the religious realm does not need God, his argument, and that through mindfulness and meditation, you can attain spirituality with an intentional curation of your experience that does not need a God concept in order to arrive, even temporarily, at a heightened human way of being. So if while I don't want to not pay attention to try to search for the actual quote,
Yeah.
something like
Okay.
that. And if you Google Sam Harris definition of spirituality, you might get it.
Okay, that's good. That's good enough. I don't know if you're able to share the link to the closing
Just did. Yeah.
blessing you used. Oh, you did. Great. Okay. You are full service. Thank you. So let's get to the Torah here that you shared. And I guess I was really intrigued by this, these categories of like the late team, the scoffers, right? Don't sit with the scoffers. They're just going to drag you, I guess you could, contemporary paraphrasing would be like, don't hang out with the haters, right? They're just going to drag you down. They're going to drain your energy, bad vibes there. I really like that. So I see there's a question from Judy, which is when we find ourselves in the presence of those bitter people, what to do. So that's one piece. Those are the external bitter people. But I was really drawn to the idea of the internal bitter, that those characters floating around in our heads, and what the messages are that we might notice. So I was going to invite you, maybe you can talk a little bit about both of those. Like, what does it mean not to sit with them, not to hang out with them? Both in terms of how do we know where that's happening internally? Right. And, you're a communal leader, right? So you, no doubt, no need to name names, but like in any community, we've got them, the people who are kind of like, who don't like help float the boat, shall we say, right? Strategies for that.
Yeah.
That should fill our time.
Yeah, right. I'm glad we have a few hours.
Yeah.
Ancient texts were raw and did not beat around the bush as we sometimes do in modern polite settings. I take the Psalms at face value. Don't go near them. Don't sit with them. And if you're near them, leave, literally. Because it's very hard to be around them and not have their way infect you, either because you're protecting yourself and therefore all of a sudden you are mimicking them, or because you become inured to what is problematic about that way of being. One of the greatest pieces of wisdom I got from someone in my own community, a very wise lay leader, around a time when I was spending way too much time amongst the scoffers and trying to protect myself against them and engage with them, and I was down in the weeds too much. And he said to me, listen, guess what? When you go down into the weeds to fight the weeds, guess what? You're in the weeds. And it was a tautology, but it was really right that if you're weed killing, you're hanging out with the weeds, right? And mostly we want to hang out in the lofty trees, right? So listen, we live a real world. This is the realpolitik. We sometimes have to be engaged in our professional and personal lives with people who hold us down. But I think there are ways in which we can limit that, or at least engage in some kind of like meditation that other people may not know that we're engaged in the moment, right? What does it mean to the next time you find yourself in that setting and you feel your own bitterness welling up, to while you're there, just engage in an open-eyed instant meditation to say that there's another way of being. I don't need to go there, right? I employ the don't even sit with them rule, rarely, but judiciously, and I do it, right? There are certain people, even in my community, that I simply will refuse to spend time with because I've given too many chances, I think, for inviting them to behave in a better way, frankly, and to stay away from being a moshav leitzim. And I know it's better for me, my soul, and also for the community I serve, for me to not be rude to them, but mostly keep my distance. If you do that too much, you become self-righteous and you don't have the community around you. If you don't do it at all, I think you're not necessarily protecting yourself as well as you ought to.
Yeah, it's interesting because just to stay with that, this part of the question for now, some folks in the chat, like Karen is saying, like one approach might be to overwhelm them with love, which could happen directly, right? Like maybe to affect them by sort of like radiating something out towards them that can serve as kind of protective shield, I guess, also, and also maybe even turn their hearts, right? And affect them. And I'm thinking of, blessing practice or a metta practice also keeping that distance, not sitting with them, but not closing one's heart to them also at the same time. And, like, like Tevye, may this, may this sort of, live and be well.
Far away from us.
Far away from us, right. So wanted to go there. What about the inner ones? You can't escape those. They're there.
You can't escape them. I find when I'm dealing with, and I don't want to suggest at all that I do this perfectly or even well, right? So when I'm speaking dispositively about approach, it doesn't mean that I'm a champion of it. I just think that it's the right way to think about it.
Right.
When I'm dealing with a internal character trait or sensation or instinct or urge that I wish were not there, at my healthiest, I take a curious stance at it. I separate myself a tiny bit and look at my own instinct or urge, and I say, isn't that interesting? What is that? Where does it come from? Why is it? So that at a slight distance, it is not defining me. I'm not becoming it. It is a part of me because our minds are very complex. But sometimes we can be claimed by it as if the entirety of our reality is whatever is bubbling up for us inside. When I give myself a tiny bit of remove, it often gives me enough distance to not overcome it, overpower it, but to find the best way to have it burst through into reality. Because a thought is not a deed, and an urge is not a word, right? And a neural burst that makes you feel something does not determine, unless you take an utter, Newtonian determinist approach to reality, does not determine your next actions, right? You actually can consider it and know that it's part of you, and then figure out the best way to actually exhibit it or not exhibit it.
Yeah. Can we get a little granular there? Like, I don't know if you're willing to share this, but like, what would you say how do you hear the inner voice of, your inner late seam? Like, what do they sound like? What are they saying? What's the message?
Sometimes they're scoffing at me, right? Pushing up against a sense of confidence or belief in oneself. Sometimes those late seam are urging me to use cynicism as a way of deflecting critique or diffusing a situation. I actually wrote a Taste of Torah, a little Dvar Torah for our community this week based on this teaching. And I wrote in it that when I use humor, I love humor. I love comedy. I love laughing. Part of my humor is sarcastic. All humor is a risk, and sarcasm is a risky version of that. And I don't want to live without sarcasm. But sarcasm jumps up against cynicism and scoffing very quickly. And I wrote about how to figure out, it's an art to figure out where that line is. So sometimes the voice inside of me is saying, forget about that line and just bulldoze past it because it's going to feel so good. That dopamine hit will feel great. But then all of a sudden not only are you in Moshav Leitzim, sitting amongst the scorners, you're one of them. And it's hard to pull back from that.
Yeah, boy. Well, I identify with that, I'll say. Just taking a look. Adam, maybe if you're open to it, maybe we can just, I want to invite us. It's really nice to end, I think, usually by transitioning out, making a little like Havdalah here by thinking about how do we bring this into the rest of our day. And our intent, we can collectively set our own intention about that, about first of all, just identifying those internals, who are the voices within us that represent that internal scoffer, those scoffers, the late seam, and who in our world, in our lives, we identify, and how do we wisely choose, like you said, to sit with them, not sit with them, to open our hearts to them, to close our hearts to them, to regulate that in some way throughout the rest of today and the rest of this week, and of course going forward, moment by moment. And I think you beautifully identified how this practice can help us recognize that that we are not synonymous with those thoughts, right? and we don't have to be controlled. Our actions and words don't have to be controlled by them. That if we have the ability to breathe and pause and insert that little bit of space between, so that we're less reactive and more responsive. So very appreciative as always for your Torah and the presence of your teaching, especially in the midst of, dealing with your own family challenge there. And again, want to wish your dad a refuah shlema. May he be well and strong, and may you and your family have all you need to support him in this stage. So maybe can we end with the one more round of the nigun?
Sure. With thanks to Eitan Katz for writing it.
Okay.
Yarana ya yarana yarara ya yarana yaraba ya ay yarara ya yo yarana ya yarana yarana ya yarana yarana ya yarana no Yananai, Yananai, Be well, everyone.